The time is nigh, and Demo is getting better and better by the beta build. I mean, we do have some changes that are kind of important because they do go around some of the issues that we mentioned last time when we did a Demo video, which has been some time, and it didn't receive as many affliction buffs or changes. However, the changes are decently important. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And if you like this type of content, you want to see us play it live, check our stream on twitch.tv/Marcelian&Online, where we play live and beta, and we do keys and raids with you guys, and sometimes do some special things on special days that you can be a part of. And maybe we can just chat about how the specs are and how the game is, and if Dragonflight is a worth the expansion for your ass to get back in. Now, without out of the way, let's talk really quickly about the changes to demonology. Now, I don't know if you have seen our affliction video where we actually go into the general talent tree a little bit as well, since they have changed quite a bit actually, and it's a little bit more streamlined. There's fewer throughput nodes than there were before. However, it is kind of better designed since the throughput nodes are very first of all symmetrical, but very accessible as well in the way that you get to them. The paths are very easy. You can obviously, you know, bypass a lot of the utility that you might not want and get to the throughputs that you want. There are some weird things. So first of all, Demonic Embrace and Demonic Fortitude don't really have a meaning anymore, since the Demonic Tyrant doesn't scale off of your demon's HP. So, I mean, you can take them to increase your HP and your pet's HP if you want to, if that's something that's going to be relevant for you in the content that you do, but they won't funnel into that Tyrant damage the way that they do right now in Shadowlands. So there's that to take into consideration. On top of that, there's also Demonic Inspiration and Wrathful Minion, which I think last time they were positioned slightly towards more the edge. They're 1-pointers now, and filling a shard gives you a different buff depending on which one you have, and you'll probably want to have both because Inspiration gives your pet haste and Fortitude gives your pet damage, and these two might be more relevant for you as a demonology than it is for the other two specs, because they will buff your Felguard, and they might actually be very, very good, especially if you do go in the Felguard build talent tree in the spec, in which we will talk in a second about. And there are two more very important throughput nodes, which are Grimoire of Synergy, which is the demonic synergy legendary right now in Shadowlands. It's way down the bottom. It's a 2-pointer with Soul Conduit as well. It's highly unlikely you'll never not pick these, because there's no real reason. They're not a choice. You don't really sacrifice other throughput to get these. It's just these, and you will probably get them. And the good part about it is that you will get both, and if you do get both, you unlock all of the capstones. And this is where we hit our first bump, because only the middle capstone, which is a choice node, provides relevant throughput, and that relevance is a little bit weird because it gives you the choice of either Inquisitor's Gaze, which is a small little eye demony thing that just zaps your target in single target. It does damage, I guess, but the main problem that I personally have, and I would imagine a lot of demonology players have with this, is that it doesn't count as a demon in your army, which is weird. First of all, I can understand why that's so, because it would actually funnel into your Tyrant's damage if you play, you know, debuffing the Tyrant with the amount of demons that you have. It would count towards other demon type mechanics and synergies from the talent tree that, let's say, Affliction and Destruction do not have. But at the same time, you're a demonology warlock that wants a certain number of demons out and can take advantage of the number of demons that it has out. So having these not count to that just makes it a little bit weird. Like, what, are these not demons anymore? So that's maybe my issue. I would have loved to see some synergy. Maybe if the synergy would prove to be way more value for demo than it would be for Affliction and Destruction, in which case, like, do we even matter? It's demons. It should be that way. Maybe nerf the baseline numbers a little bit, but have them matter. I want to see that if I summon an Inquisitor's Gaze or the Soul Keeper, which is the other choice node, it matters. And because I'm a demonology warlock, I want to feel like, you know, the choice of my demons has an impact on my playstyle. The summon Soul Keeper is actually the cool one. Basically what this does is you summon a stationary demon that just deals AoE damage around it based on how many stacks you have, up until 10. The stacks are basically souls that you gather by killing stuff, and they can also be gathered passively. You don't really have to kill stuff. And obviously you can funnel this into packs as you play your demonology into keys, into raids or whatever, depending on if it's AoE or not. and it will deal damage periodically. Again, it doesn't really take into consideration, you know, it doesn't buff the Tyrant, it doesn't do anything like that, which is weird. It's not buffed by the Tyrant. So then again, it's just like, I would love to have these make sense and, you know, do other stuff. And the other two, the capstones, are prior utility capstones. They don't really add anything. They're undertuned, so hopefully we can see some more love put into these. Now, that out of the way, let's actually talk about the spec tree and the few changes, but relevant changes that have happened. First of all, the AoE side of the talent tree is still all the way on the right-hand side, while Implosion is on the left-hand side. Well, although the AoE is there, there's a bunch of imp talents on the left-hand side, so maybe that's why Implosion is there. Maybe it's not supposed to be something like the devs want to make it, so that's single target and that's AoE. Maybe that's Felguard and this is imps, and maybe that makes sense. It's very wide. The talent is very wide as opposed to other talent trees, and you'll likely want Implosion in most scenarios, especially when there's more than one target. But sometimes you might be forced into Implosion if you want to take other stuff, or you can actually skip it, so maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the reason why it's all the way on the left-hand side is so that you can skip it if you don't particularly want it, if you want to build it in a specific way. The Expendables has been moved to the right side right now, which is again really good, and I think it kind of took the place of Stolen Power, which has been swapped to the left-hand side. And considering my point earlier is that the Expendables on the right-hand side while the imp talents were on the left-hand side, so that's just, I don't know what the thought process is. It's probably just to funnel and to work synergistically with the type of builds that are on each side of the talent tree. One thing obviously that's close to my heart and that I've kind of ranted in the previous video is the Nether Portal. Now, since our last video, the Nether Portal went through a couple of changes. We didn't cover each individual one, and the way it is now, it kind of feels like it's kind of the same. So if you've watched our previous video, and if you watched other content creators like Kalamazi, for instance, that talks about this, or even in our Warlock podcast that we've just released a couple of days ago, the main issue that people have with Nether Portal is that it's fueled by the amounts of soul shards you spend, right? So because each soul shard, spending soul shards, you summon demons. It doesn't matter how many you spend, meaning that the rotation will be Shadow Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Shadow Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, which is a little bit weird because it will clutter your rotation with a lot of unnecessary Hand of Gul'dans. You'll probably still cast the same amounts of Shadow Bolts to generate the same amounts of Soul Shards, but you'll cast way more Hands of Gul'dan when you could have way more demons out spawned in the normal rotational way, which is very synergistic, and this is maybe what the weird thing is, and this is more fueled by, let's say, the other, one of the capstones, let's say. Ner'zhul's Volition has also been changed to give you a chance of, if you put 3 points in, 30%, otherwise 15% chance to summon an extra demon when you spend soul shards. But then again, it's not per soul shard spent, so it doesn't incentivize you to cast 3 shard Hand of Gul'dans. You still have to cast 1 each to benefit the most from all these RNG, so they double dip down into the just Shadow Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Shadow Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan playstyle, which is something that, you know, it's just weird. And Gul'dan's ambition is more or less the same. It has been changed kind of where the Pit Lord will basically scale based off of the number of demons spawned and not by the soul shards consumed. So again, you still have to like degenerately spam those 1 shard Hand of Gul'dans, which I don't know. But it's still a cool playstyle, and it does work way better with these new addition capstones and semi-capstones, so I hope they continue reiterating on the Nether Portal to make it amazing, and who knows, maybe one day it will also synergize really well with the Tyrant, so that could be really cool. Speaking of, the Demonic Turn no longer consumes the health, we mentioned this before, and the capstone right now is a choice node between Reign of Tyranny, which is the old Demonic Consumption renamed, and Wilfred of Sigil Summoning. Obviously, we're in beta and the numbers are subject to change and the tuning is not yet final. However, Reign of Tyranny is very undertuned, making you kind of want to choose Wilfred's pretty much all the time. And we talked about this in the Warlock podcast as well. And if I'm not mistaken, last time that we talked about Warlock, or at least the first time that we talked about demo, Wilfred's was in the general talent tree, because that would make sense since it's something that all 3 specs would like. But then again, maybe it skews the power of the capstones there. However, Reign of Tyranny works slightly different. Now, Demonic Turn deals 3% additional damage per each stack of Demonic Servitude active at the time. And demonic servitude is basically active wild imps grant you 1 stack of demonic servitude, active greater demons grant 2 stacks of demonic servitude. And we can assume from the wording that the greater demons are, you know, the Fel Stalkers, your Fel Guard, your Vile Fiend, and any other demon that you might spawn. Probably the big imp gang boss can be considered a greater demon as well. And maybe 3% is not enough, so we'll have to see how the numbers tune out in the end. And on the right hand side, we talked about it, that's the Felguard side, and this is maybe one of the more interesting side of the talent trees because it's a lot of synergy baked into your main pet, which has maybe the more new talents added here. One of the changes is the capstone, which prior was named Hold This For Me, now has been renamed to Guillotine, and it can actually work. It's really cool right now when you use it on the beta, and it does feel like this could be a core point of demonology. And I think this is pretty cool because it's been some time since I felt as a demo warlock that I put a lot of value into my main pet. Although the main pet is good and it's most of your damage still, now you can actually influence that with a lot of cool talents that can make it do more single target, more AoE damage, and also it might be slightly kind of overpowered for kind of the same reasons that we mentioned last time. Not overpowered, but rather very strong competitively with stuff like Command Aura and things like that. But Demo Warlock, I think it's still going into a right direction. I would really like them to reiterate on Nether Portal a little bit more and make it either synergize with the spec more, or if it's going to be a standalone cooldown on its own separate timer, because it is on a 3 minute while your turn is on a 1.5 minute if you don't take Wilfred, then I would like Nether Portal to kind of be its own playstyle. Have it mean more, have it, you know, kind of, okay, I Shadow Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Shadow Bolt, Hand of Gul'dan, but make the Pit Lord at the end really matter. I would love to see that because right now it's still undertuned, and yeah, numbers are numbers, but then again, you know, I hope it doesn't go this way into the live version. But what do you think? Is Demonology looking like a solid spec? I actually feel like it could be a main spec for me as well going into Dragonflight, because it is really cool and it's doing a lot of demon-y good stuff that I like to see in a spec that should control legions of demons. But that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, patrons, for supporting the content that we do, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.